Lesson 18. Jesus raises Lazarus. I am the resurrection and the life. Reading John 11 verses 1 to 44. Objective. As a result of learning about the resurrection of Lazarus, you will be convinced that God can and will raise to life those who believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, including you. Background. As usual, the Jews misunderstood Jesus and his claim to be the Son of God. Outraged by what they thought to be a blasphemous claim, they tried to arrest him, but he slipped away across the Jordan to the place where John the Baptist had begun his work. John 10 verses 39 to 40. Jesus hears of Lazarus' sickness. John 11 verses 1 to 6. Away to the west, a growing crisis enveloped a family in Bethany. Lazarus and his two sisters, Martha and Mary, lived in Bethany, a small village 3 kilometers east of Jerusalem. They were faithful followers of Jesus, and he loved them. Naturally, when Lazarus became very ill, they thought of Jesus. Knowing that he could heal their brother, they sent a messenger with an urgent message. Lord, behold, he whom thou lovest is sick. Verse 3. But Jesus did not go. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby, he said in verse 4, and stayed where he was for 2 more days. Meanwhile, Lazarus died. Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus in verse 5. But he had a greater purpose in mind than simply healing one of his closest friends. The miracle he was about to work would demonstrate once and for all that God had given him power over life and death, and that men and women would find everlasting life only by believing in him and his power and purpose to save them. Jesus and his disciples journey to Bethany. John 11 verses 7 to 15. Jesus' words implied that Lazarus' disease was not fatal in verse 4, but Jesus knew better. He prepared to go to Bethany. His disciples were staggered. Bethany was in Judea, only 3 kilometers from Jerusalem, and the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem had plans to kill Jesus. It seemed like certain death to return. Master, they protested, the Jews of late sought to stone thee, and goest thou thither again? In verse 8. But Jesus knew that God would protect him until the very moment when, in God's purpose, he would die for the sins of the world. My hour is not yet come, he told them. Then he told them why he wanted to go to Bethany. Our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may awake him out of his sleep, he explained in verse 11. But the disciples were more puzzled than ever. It was a long journey just to wake up Lazarus, and in any case, if he was recovering from a near-fatal illness, then sleep would be very good for him. Why wake him up? Seeing they did not understand him, Jesus said plainly, Lazarus is dead. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. Verses 14 to 15. For Jesus knew that he would wake Lazarus out of the sleep of death. He was determined to return to Judea. The disciples, led by Thomas, encouragingly committed themselves to go with him. Verse 16. Jesus speaks to Martha and Mary. John 11 verses 17 to 32. Meanwhile, the sisters waited for help to arrive, first in hope, then in desperation, and finally in grief and despair. Jesus was the only one with the power to heal their brother, and he had not responded to their plea. Finally, when Lazarus had been dead and buried 4 days, they heard that Jesus was nearly there. Martha hurried out to meet him. She poured out her heart. "Lord, if thou had been here, my brother had not died." But she continued in great faith, "I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee." In verse 21 and 22. She hardly dared to think what Jesus might do, but she firmly believed that he could do anything with the power given to him by God. Jesus tested her faith. "Thy brother shall rise again," he reminded her in verse 23. "I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day," in verse 24, she affirmed. Her faith was based on a good understanding of Bible teaching about resurrection. But Jesus wanted her to go further. He wanted her to trust in him personally. "I am the resurrection and the life," he said. "Whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die." Verse 25 to 26. "Believest thou this?" he asked her. "Yea, Lord," was her firm reply. "I believe that thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world." Verse 27. And she ran to fetch her sister Mary. When Mary met Jesus, she too fell at his feet and repeated her sister's words. "Lord, if thou had been here, my brother had not died." Verse 32. Jesus raises Lazarus. John 11 verses 33 to 44. Jesus knew that he was about to raise Lazarus from the dead. He knew that he was about to turn the sisters' tears into joy. But their grief was only a small illustration of the terrible pain and sadness experienced by all mankind. When they showed Jesus his tomb, he too wept. Verse 34 to 35. Some were impressed with his sincere love for Lazarus in verse 36, but others used it as an opportunity to criticize Jesus. "Could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died?" Verse 37. Jesus, grieving openly, commanded the onlookers to roll away the stone that blocked the mouth of the cave in which Lazarus was entombed. In verse 38. Martha was startled by the command and protested, "Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days." In verse 39. Again Jesus called on her to believe. "Said I not unto thee that, if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God?" In verse 40. The stone was rolled away. In the presence of the crowd, Jesus looked toward heaven and prayed to his Father to show his power and vindicate his Son's claim to be the Messiah. Verse 41 to 42. Then he turned to the open door of the tomb and with a loud voice called, "Lazarus, come forth." In verse 43. To the amazement of the onlookers, a figure swathed in burial clothes stumbled out of the gloom and into the light. "Loose him and let him go," Jesus commanded in verse 44. We can imagine the mingled fear and joy with which Martha and Mary hurried to obey his order. Basic Bible teaching, the nature of man, mortality. In Adam all die, 1 Corinthians 15 verse 22. Adam's rebellion against God's law and the death that followed from his sin affected the entire human race. Death is now a grim reality for all men and women, and only God has the answer to it in his promise of the resurrection from the dead. The great majority of people do not accept this. Some believe that there is no hope beyond death. This life is all there is. Let us eat, drink and be merry, is their philosophy, for tomorrow we die. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 32 to 34. Many believe in life after death, but reject the Bible's hope. Eastern religions typically teach some form of reincarnation, where the souls of the dead are reborn in new living creatures. Western religions, including most Christian churches, typically teach that the souls of the dead enter another eternal world. The souls of the righteous enter the presence of God, while the souls of the wicked are tortured forever in the flames of hell. Over time, this teaching has become more and more elaborate, but there is no support for it in the Bible. Instead, the Bible clearly teaches that man is mortal, that is, man is destined to die. Man, like the animals, lives by the life power of God. Genesis 2 verse 7, Job 33 verses 4 to 6, Psalms 104 verses 29 to 30. When this power is removed, all that remains is a dead body, which, like the dead body of an animal, decays and slowly returns to dust. Psalms 49 verse 9, verses 14, and verses 19 to 20. Ecclesiastes 3 verses 18 to 21. Life is short and passes quickly. James 4 verse 14. There is no continuing existence after death. Psalms 88 verses 3 to 12, Ecclesiastes 9 verses 3 to 10. As the hymn states, life is the time to serve the Lord, to do his will, to learn his word. In death there is no power to know, far less in wisdom's way to go. Man is not inherently immortal. Immortality is the gift of God. Romans 6 verse 23. Revealed in the Gospel, 2 Timothy 1 verse 10, and is only for the righteous. Romans 2 verse 6 to 8. Who believe in Jesus Christ. John 3 verse 16, John 3 verse 36, John 6 verse 40, and John 11 verse 25. They will receive it at the return of Jesus Christ. 1 Corinthians 15 verses 19 to 23 and verses 51 to 54. Who will raise the dead and reward those who have believed in him and served him faithfully. Daniel 12 verses 1 to 3. Our willingness to believe God, that is, to trust in his promise to forgive and to save us, is crucial. Mark 16 verses 15 to 16, John 3 verse 16, Acts 8 verse 12, and Acts 8 verses 35 to 37. Martha believed, John 11 verse 27. Many of those who saw the miracle believed. See verse 45. Do you believe? These lessons are the words taken from the Christadelphian Sunday School Association notes. www.cssa.asn.au, used with permission. Email your questions to readthebible2@gmail.com. The next lesson in stage 4 will be lesson 19, Behold Your King.